Eyes exists for one reason and one reason only, and that's to take your Valentine's Day dollars. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just want you to know this is more product than movie. This is a slasher which is super derivative, super cheap, super silly, and super disposable. You will forget about it as soon as you stop watching it, maybe even while you're watching it. But, it's something to do for Valentine's Day, a holiday which is notoriously difficult to plan activities for. And also, I think these days, we like holidays to kind of last. We like them to be more than just the day or the day before and after. So, we're getting in the Valentine's Day mood. So this, I think, helps with that. And this year, Hollywood is thinking outside the chocolate box when it comes to Valentine's Day. You have this slasher from Sony, and then also Universal's low-budget action comedy, Love Hurts. They're both coming out the weekend before Valentine's Day. Because Valentine's Day this year not only falls on a Friday, so, you want to kind of get out ahead of the holiday. Once the weekend after hits, Valentine's Day will be almost immediately done. But also, because it's part of a holiday weekend, as it usually is, much bigger movies tend to park there. So these smaller movies are dropping the weekend of the Super Bowl, which is not a great weekend as it is for movies, but they're hoping to play for the whole week leading up to Valentine's Day. And I think those are solid plays, to be honest with you. Now, we always talk about a balance between business and creative, but Hard Eyes is that rare movie which leans more in the business direction than the creative. It's in fact very well put together from a business perspective. As a cheeky slasher, I think it appeals to people who are both in and out of relationships for Valentine's Day. It's also a solid choice for Galentine's Day, which of course is the day before Valentine's Day, particularly with the eye candy that is Mr. Mason Gooding. You can watch with glee as lovey-dovey couples who are oh so totally fake, right, are slaughtered, but then at the same time see a very real romance blossom between Gooding and Olivia Holt. At first I was like, this movie's great for people who are like, Valentine's Day sucks. But then I was like, it's also very romantic. But I think it does the balance nicely. Also, Holt's character just has had her heart broken. So at the beginning of the movie, she's very down on love as well. So I think that will also help people from across the love relationship spectrum, relate to this movie. The movie really is engineered, I think, to have as broad appeal as possible for the holiday. And in that regard, I think it's quite clever. It's Valentine's Day themed. Not a lot of Valentine's Day movies out there, which, Hollywood has not really leaned into the holiday, interestingly enough. I guess they make a lot of romances, but not like Valentine's Day. And this one spotlights the holiday, for sure, with different date ideas for murder. That was pretty good. The movie does not go as far as it should. I think they could have had something really great here, and they had something that's good enough, is how I would describe Hard Eyes. It's a clear ripoff, by the way, of Ghostface from Scream. And it's from the same production company that has taken over the Scream franchise, and has also brought horror to Thanksgiving with the film back in 2023 that did okay because it was so cheap to make, just like this one. And so I see the vision, Spyglass, to bring horror to all the holidays. And in fact, they're making a Thanksgiving too, and I see franchise potential for Hard Eyes as well. Maybe they can do a better job with the sequel, like, for instance, better establish their killer, who in this movie is already very well known by the public. See, this is his third killing spree for the holiday, where he hits different cities each February 14th. This year, he's in Seattle, but he might as well be anywhere because it's very much nondescript city. And in fact, he is somewhere else, as the movie was shot in New Zealand. I thought it was, when you think of some of the, they have like one scene that takes place in the countryside, and I'm like, those are the rolling hills of New Zealand. But otherwise, it is just nondescript city. I don't even know if they should have bothered. Maybe they should have made up a city or something, but it was fine. I think, again, it would have been better if they'd leaned into the location, which would have helped with the franchise potential, but it's fine. I was also kind of disappointed that the eyes barely light up in the movie like they do in the poster. I was like, that's what really makes it seem like the emoji. But they only lit up once or twice. Even when he was outside at night, I was like, what? Also, they've given the mask some kind of weird baby smile. So the mask is actually a mixture of the heart eyes emoji and like a Cupid mask. And I think they should have just picked one of the directions and went in it. Because I'm like, it's not really a Cupid mask, but it's not really a heart eyes emoji mask either. I would have gone with the Cupid route, to be honest with you. I know emojis I like emojis. I use them all the time. But I think with, his arrows and the fact that he has a heart motif on a number of his blades, which I thought was a nice touch, I thought Cupid was more clever. It's actually also, the mask is also a bit reminiscent of the mask from Happy Death Day, which is from Christopher Landon, who is behind this movie as well. And almost took on the latest Scream movie until he dropped out because of all the drama in late 2023. He's a co-writer and co-producer here, although Hard Eyes is not nearly as good as his best work to date, Happy Death Day. That is a much better film. But speaking of Scream, the Hard Eyes killer, what I think is very, not only the mask makes him like Ghostface, but he has the same physicality as Ghostface. He moves with the same ferocity and momentum as that character, and also seems inhumanly invincible. So that actually is good for the movie, though, because it gives those sequences a good energy. You're like, this guy could really move. It was neat. They had good sound effects for the kills, the blades. That element was excellent. Even though I could tell they were directly lifting it from the Ghostface movies. They were like, take that sound package and the black leather look to some degree and just put it with take it from Ghostface and put it on Hard Eyes. Maybe they're hoping someday to do a crossover, and every Scream fan just threw up a little bit in their mouth. But yes, Spyglass does seem to be, again, a little bit more leaning in the business direction overall. And so I could see them at some point putting all these killers in the same movie, but I don't know, what is Ghostface Halloween? I don't know. It scares me a little bit, but we'll see. All right. But I have to say, if you're really thinking about a killer who kills couples on Valentine's Day, I think that killer would be more psychologically driven than physically driven. Like Hannibal Lecter or the killer in Seven. Then, it doesn't really work. It is a cash grab movie, as I said. They don't think about it that hard. It's not a real movie. I think, and that's what makes it a little frustrating when you're watching it. You're like, a really good movie is right there. You guys just went the easier, cheaper route. And they're like, well, look at us count our money. We don't care. So, we'll see how the box office shakes out. And I'm even giving it a good review because I think it does what it's supposed to. It is a Valentine's Day product, and I think it's a solid one. Also for another missed opportunity is that there's a really funny gag that since they start out, the two main characters in a love-hate situation, when the Hard Eyes killer is going after them, Holt and Gooding keep saying, we're not a couple, stop going after us. Even though they so clearly are falling in love. And I thought that was a good gag, and they didn't use it enough. I was like, you could have really leaned into this, and I think it would have helped make your movie better and more of its own thing. Also, they referenced the movie His Girl Friday, and I was like, what a crazy reference. It's not even that romantic a movie, to be honest with you. But it is like the classic love-hate romance, where they spend most of the movie fighting only to realize that they're in love. So I think that's the inspiration for the Holt and Gooding dynamic, but then go for it. Really do that instead of just like a very weak homage and like an on-screen reference. You're like, I'm like, you could have just gone so much further with that. The movie has a lot of really good ideas, as I said, and they're all right there. And if the movie had taken it's taken itself even the slightest bit more seriously from a creative standpoint, I think it could have been as good as Scream, instead of, as I said, a clear imitation. To the movie's credit, though, it does have a lot of story. I was like, wow, this movie's still going. A lot happens in the film. There are a lot of twists and turns and a couple genuine surprises that I didn't see coming. It's only an hour and a half, which is also good. Fits really nice into an evening out, right? It doesn't take up your whole evening. You can go see this movie, then still go out to dinner, still have fun, right? So that's good. That's very clever as well. And I felt very much like it was a full experience at the theater. I wasn't like, it's over already. Instead, as I told you, I was like, I can't believe this thing's still going. But not like maybe it was, not in a bad way, but that's how I felt about it. Now we already know that Christopher Landon is a very good pitch man, as in he comes up with great ideas, but I think we all know that his execution isn't quite as good as it could be. We'll see how he fares with Drop, which is coming out in April. Hey, the guy's busy. As I said, if you come up with good ideas in Hollywood, you're very valuable. Again, even if your execution is a little weak, being an idea person is the most valuable. So he's directing Drop in April. that's a crazy movie too. He didn't write it, but he's just directing it. But I think on that standpoint, the film visually is a lot more striking than this film. And then this film is directed by Josh Ruben, who has some solid small horror comedies on his resume. And he comes from College Humor. And this is his first big studio picture. But I gotta say, I thought his directing was very weak and uninspired. I think he was the weakest part of this film. And there were other weak parts, but he was the weakest. I think another director could have maybe really, made this more of its own thing. I think he did as little as he possibly could, to be honest with you. I felt he brought very little to the package. Now, so this movie, what makes it work is the writing. Again, not as good as it could be, but good enough, a good product. If you told me this movie was written by Hallmark, I'd believe you, or like some greedy, whoever sells Valentine's Day stuff. But also it has a phenomenal cast. This movie is extremely well cast. Holt and Gooding not only make for a great Scream queen and king, Gooding, of course, is also from the Scream franchise itself, but they have great chemistry not only with each other, but with the audience. They're very likable and accessible romantic leads. So even if you come into this movie wanting to hate watch it for Valentine's Day, they'll win you over. They're not going to be a couple that you're like, gross. You're like, oh, you know what? You guys are okay. I like you guys. Jordana Brewster and Devon Sawa play a pair of detectives investigating the Hard Eyes killer. Wait until you hear their names. That was a funny joke. And they are, of course, a Scream queen and king of a former generation. They both come from very famous horror films. They're great gets for the film. They both give it their all. They're very funny. They're excellent. They both do a fantastic job. Gigi Zumbato and Michaela Watkins, formerly of SNL, you might recall her. They both bring some humor to the film in their small supporting roles, but they both manage to stand out. They both do a nice job. Look, as many of you know, I'm not into horror films, particularly the gory ones, and this one's very gory. I like more thrillers, and I like Scream. I like a good slasher, but this was gorier. And it has a lot of jump scares. I know some of you really hate jump scares, but isn't that what slasher movies are? Just a lot of jump scares? And it got me. I was scared. I was looking down at the floor a lot, waiting to hear the kill, wait till you hear the victim scream, and then, okay, well, you can look, it's safe to re-engage with the movie. And if you're looking for your date to grab onto you, or an excuse to grab onto your date, even if you're not scared, Hard Eyes is a great movie for that as well. So I had fun. I got my Valentine's Day on. I would say Hard Eyes is like going through, how I would describe it? It's like going through a Valentine's Day themed horror maze. Not one of the really good ones that they have these days. I mean, horror mazes have really stepped up their game. But like a solid one. One of the, when they're rating like haunted Halloween horror nights over at Universal, this is like one of the, like the solid hitters of the night. It was solid. It was good. You're not going to be like, you got to do this maze. But you could do the maze and you would have a good time. Like as you exit the theater and you walk out into the night, you will feel that you are experiencing Valentine's Day. You got your holiday on. You had something to do that was holiday themed. And I think that's great, either for a date or with friends or even by yourself. I think that makes this movie worthwhile. I think it's very good in that regard. Again, I said it's a Valentine's Day product, but a solid one. Just like when you go and you pick up something, an impulse purchase. You're like, oh, I love some like little heart candy, or I'll buy this little heart t-shirt or sticker or whatever. And you feel engaged with the holiday. That's what this movie is. So that's my review of Hard Eyes, hitting theaters February 7th. They lifted the embargo insanely early because, again, it's good for what it is. And it's going to be available for the whole week leading up to Valentine's Day. And I think it's worth making it a part of your Valentine's Day plans. All right, so share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.